Hey YouTube, I haven't done a talk video in a while, and it's pretty good to do this every now and then. So some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about is just basic stuff that I've noticed from a movie. I don't own any rights to anything that I say on this video. It's just stuff that I examine. It's for entertainment use only. So, the first thing I noticed in Incredibles was that Incredibles 2 is you can get a good sense that Underminer, he is a very cool character, but you also notice that he is very interesting in many different ways. He has powers that no other villain normally would have. You've seen Syndrome in action, you've seen bank robbers in action, you've seen the people that burned down the building in the first Incredibles. You've seen all of that, but you've never seen any villain quite like Underminer. Next thing to talk about on the topic of Incredibles is that talking about Void. Now, did you notice that Void has a very interdimensional characteristic? In fact, it is so much related to Elastigirl's powers, which makes it kind of exactly why they both get along so well, is because they both kind of step in the right direction. They both have something similar in powers. Elastigirl is very strengthful. She can stretch her arms, legs, all the above. She can stretch her body in many different directions. And Void, she can move many different things out of her comfort zone, out of her hands, using different dimensional things. She can move around with her arms and legs and use kicks through her interdimensional. She can walk through the interdimensional. You can see all of it in that movie. Let's talk about Screenslaver. Now, I was very curious as to who Screenslaver was. I was very wondering who it was, and it was just hard to kind of piece together how Screenslaver could be that person. But then it made sense. All the clothes that she was wearing, her making Elastigirl trying to look kind of like Screenslaver, her making a bike that looked kind of like Screenslaver. And another thing too is it's very rare for a body cam to be hacked unless somebody has access to it. So it kind of pieced together how that character in Incredibles 2 was Screenslaver, because it was impossible for her to be able to get a hold of the suit cam unless you had access, and she had access, and that's why her suit cam was hacked, was because Screenslaver hacked it. Next information. As you noticed, Mirage from the first one, she was normally seen as the main antagonist, but you never found out until she actually was seen with Syndrome by the Mr. Incredible. But she ended up realizing that her life seemed way worse than it had already become. She seemed like her life was worse, and she wanted to change that for better for her, because Syndrome was kind of weakening her out, and her life just didn't seem to the full standards of what she wanted. She felt like she was jeopardizing herself, and she didn't feel like that was her characteristic anymore. She did not want to be a villain. She wanted to be the good guy. And another thing that you notice is that Mirage acts like she is there for Mr. Incredible, but really she's trying to tear him down. So she's trying to hide the fact that she works for Syndrome so he never finds out, because if Robert finds out, then he is going to tear down the offer and he's going to try and leave, and that is not good for Mirage or Syndrome. One of the things I also noticed about Incredibles is that there are some kind of inappropriate jokes in there that no kids understand. There were a couple jokes in the first one. The first one, there was jokes about sexually active things, like that scene where Elastigirl was taking a look at her butt. That's kind of weird. Why would she want to be taking a look at her butt in her new costume? That's just kind of a little bit strange and out of line. Another thing that's also out of line in the movie is there is some actively playing in second one as well. You can see that they're trying to assume that Elastigirl and Evelyn are trying to have a lesbian relationship. There is a fight scene where it kind of gets a little weird during the fight scene. It looks kind of strange when you piece it together. Like, playfully, I don't know what the heck they were thinking. What else can we talk about in The Incredibles? Okay, let's talk about Edna Mode. Now, people have been saying that she is a villain and that she's going to become a villain, but I highly doubt that. Just because she acts very feisty and has many different regrets doesn't mean that she is going to be a villain. She is a feisty millionaire and she has standards. She is larger than life. She has her moments where she wants things to be at her certain high end, and that's why she acts like that. Because she wants to make sure that she's seen as a superhero creator of costumes and super suits. So she wants to be seen as the top notch because she does have a lot of money. She is a millionaire. She wants to be known as a millionaire super suits creator. She doesn't want to be seen as anything else. Another thing that I noticed about Edna is that whenever something triggers her, she doesn't stop it from letting the person know that she is in that mood. And I think the reason being is because she doesn't want to always be that weakling. She wants to be strong and tough. She wants to be able to be heard and not be told that she doesn't know what she's doing. Like in the first one, Bob telling her that she should create a super suit with a cape on it when really she knows what's best for a super suit. She knows that putting a cape on a super suit might not be a best idea because it can kill somebody. And basically, there's been a lot of accidents happening with the capes, and you never know. Like, maybe she didn't mean to do it, and maybe she regrets everything that she did, and she wants to change from that, but Robert is forcing her to do that. So she's trying to tell him, no capes because you know what happens, and I'm not putting you in risk. I'm not putting Elastigirl in risk. I'm not putting Violet in risk. I'm not putting Dash in risk. Now, this next to our next subject, because it goes under that, you never found out about Jack Jack's powers until the second one. I think the creators and writers did this on purpose. The first one wasn't mainly focusing on Jack Jack at the time, and the reason being is because the conflict just didn't add up through the first one because it wasn't as needed. It was just the beginning. You didn't need to know about Jack Jack's powers until later. So in the second one, you find out about Jack Jack's powers. And Edna helps create a super suit to be able to make sure they can conveniently keep track of his powers. This being the reason because his powers are so innovative and so crazy that you never know what powers are going to happen. You need to know what kind of powers are happening because if he's not amused, then he gets into that power phase because he is a baby. He can't control his powers very well. He is not trained to keep these powers and trained to be able to use these powers properly. That's why they must train him to use these powers up until he gets older. He can be able to mature and be able to get his powers in control on his own time instead of letting his family control them. Last thing we're going to talk about is very important, and I think this is a huge opinion to me. As you notice in the first Incredibles, you notice that there was a guy fighter, which was Mr. Incredible, for the main protagonist. The main antagonist was also a guy. You notice the same gender as in the second movie. In the second movie, you notice that the main antagonist is a female and that the main protagonist is a female as well. I think that this is a very negotiable reason of knowing what is being told in the story. And I think that the directors and writers did this on purpose because they know that people are going to examine what they do in production, from casting to deciding who the main protagonist, the main antagonist, all of the above. And it is very crazy how everything they think goes in line with the movie and with the plot. So yeah, that kind of makes sense if you know where I'm getting at. If not, tell me what you think it is and why they made that decision to do that in those two movies. And mind you, 100%, I am not trying to be sexist in any way. I'm just noticing and analyzing some kind of characteristics that the director and writer had decided to make in the first and second movie. Alright, last thing we're going to touch before we get into our wrap-up. Didn't you notice a 14-year gap? Well, guess what? People are saying that it's going to take another 14 years for a third movie to come out if they want to consider a third movie. Now, the director and writers of Incredibles have been saying that it's something that they want to consider, but they're not sure if it's going to happen or not. Mind you 100% that it could happen, especially after what had happened in the ending of Incredibles 2. There was a scene where there was a fight scene where obviously there's a new connection to the third movie, so it makes sense that there would be a third movie. What do you guys think? Do you think there will be a third movie, or do you think that was just acted out just to wrap up the movie and they don't plan on having a next movie anytime soon within the next couple of years or 14 years? Please like and subscribe, and please catch up more of my videos. I'll be doing more talks later on, hopefully, and more reviews and other things. Molly, stop! Sorry, I was talking to my dog. So yeah, please subscribe and like, and stay tuned for more videos.